My name is Manika Majumdar and I'm working as an assistant professor for the Department of Food Nutrition and Dietetics at Milagros College. Today, our topic of discussion is lipids. Lipids are of great importance to our body as it is the chief storage form of energy. Now let us see what are these lipids. Lipids are the water-insoluble organic biomolecules. Since we all know we have four main biomolecules in our body that are lipids, proteins, carbohydrate, and nucleic acid. So, lipid is the macromolecules or the biomolecules which is water-soluble organic compounds. They are mainly soluble in organic solvent such as ether, chloroform or benzene. So if we talk about the nature as they are not soluble in water, that means they are hydrophobic in nature, that means water hater. So lipids, they are hydrophobic in nature because due to the presence of hydrocarbon chain in them. And unlike carbohydrates, proteins and nucleic acid, lipid is a not polymer. Whereas protein, which is a polymer of amino acid, and carbohydrate, which is a polymer of monosaccharide, but lipid is a biomolecule or a macromolecule, which is not a polymer. So, what is this lipid made of? This lipid are composed of fatty acid, as you can see in the slide, and alcohol. So this fatty acid, as you can see, this is carboxylic acid group and this one is a hydrocarbon chain. So this together called as fatty acid, and lipid is made of this fatty acid and this alcohol, which is shown here is glycerol. So this hydrocarbon chain in the fatty acid makes the lipid hydrophobic, or this is the reason why they are insoluble in water. Now let us see some functions of lipids. They are the storage form of metabolic fuel. So it stores a large amount of energy in our body, and it also provides it is the only molecule which gives the highest amount of energy in our body. Next function is transport form of metabolic fuel. Since lipids are insoluble in water, so it is difficult for the lipids to transport through the blood. So that is the reason why they are transported through lipoprotein. As you can see in the picture, this is the structure of lipoprotein. It is made of lipids and protein. So this lipoprotein carries the lipids, or we can say transport the lipids from one place to other. Lipids also provide structural components of membrane. As we all know, you can also see in the slide, our cell membrane, they are mainly composed of lipids and proteins. So lipids which are mainly present, they are phospholipids. As you can see, the blue color, these all are phospholipids. So they are phospholipid bilayer. So our cell membrane is a lipid bilayer. So from this we can say it's provide a structural component of the membrane. It also provides protective function in bacteria, plants, insects and vertebrates. It also serves as a pigments, hormones and bile salt, as lipids are the precursor of some fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E and K. There are many hormones which are also derived from lipids. So as we discussed earlier, the lipid is composed of fatty acid and alcohol. So let us see what is this fatty acid. So fatty acid, they are the long hydrocarbon chain and terminal hydroxyl carboxylic group is there. So as you can see, this is the carboxylic acid group and there is a long chain of hydrocarbon. So this together makes a fatty acids. Okay, so this is the structure of a fatty acid. We can also call the fatty acid as a aliphatic carboxylic acid group and the general formula is RCOOH. Now we have different types of fatty acids. These fatty acids, they are different from each other on the basis of their chain length or the number of double bond or the position of double bond in their hydrocarbon chain. Now in our nature, the even number carbon fatty acids are more comparatively to the odd number of carbons fatty acids. Let us see one classification of fatty acid which is done on the basis of the nature of the hydrocarbon. Fatty acid, it is divided into two groups. One is called as saturated fatty acid and another one is unsaturated fatty acid. Now what is saturated fatty acid? Saturated fatty acid are those which do not contain any double bond in their hydrocarbon chain. Now let us see one example. So as you can see, this is a fatty acid and there is no double bond in their hydrocarbon chain. So they are considered as a saturated fatty acid. So we have many saturated fatty acids in our nature, that is lauric acid, myristic acid, palmitic acid and stearic acid. Another group is unsaturated fatty acid. Now, what is this unsaturated fatty acid? These are the fatty acids which contain double bond in their hydrocarbon chain. So, as you can see, this is the hydrocarbon chain and there is a presence of one double bond, which makes the hydrocarbon chain little bit bent. So, there is a kink in their hydrocarbon chain which is due to the presence of double bond. So, this is the unsaturated fatty acid. Now, the unsaturated fatty acid can be classified into two categories like monounsaturated fatty acid and polyunsaturated fatty acid. Now, what is monounsaturated fatty acid? Mono means one. That means these are the fatty acids which contains only one double bond in their hydrocarbon chain. Examples are like oleic acid. Polyunsaturated fatty acids are those which contains many double bond in their hydrocarbon chain. Example are like omega-6 fatty acid, omega-3, linoleic acid, linolenic acid, arachidonic acid, etc. Now, as you can see, these are the some examples of fatty acid. This is a palmitic acid, which is having 16 carbons, and it is also a saturated fatty acid as it do not contain any double bond. Next example is oleic acid. As you can see, it is designated as C18 H2 So 18 indicates the number of carbon present in the fatty acid and 1 indicates the number of double bond present in the hydrocarbon chain. So as you can see in the oleic acid, there is only one double bond. So that is why it's called as monounsaturated fatty acid. Polyunsaturated fatty acid, example linoleic acid, and it's designated as C18 colon 2. So 18 indicates the number of carbon and 2 here indicates the number of double bond present in the hydrocarbon chain. So since there is more than one double bond present here, so that's why it's called as polyunsaturated fatty acid. Likewise, we have many examples here like myristic acid, palmitic acid, palmitoic acid as it contains 16 carbon and 1 double bond. So it's an unsaturated fatty acid. So we have oleic acid, stearic acid, linoleic acid. It contains 18 carbon and it contains two carbon double bonds. So likewise, there are many different fatty acids. Now, based on the number of carbon atoms, there are two types of saturated fatty acid. One is called as even chain of fatty acid, and the one is odd chain fatty acid. Now, from the name, you can easily figure out even chain fatty acid means the fatty acids which contains even number of carbon atoms. Examples are like acetic acid, which contains 2 carbon, butyric acid, which contains 4 carbon, and palmitic acid, which contains 16 carbon. So number of carbon here is even. Odd chain fatty acid. Now these are the fatty acids which contain odd number of carbon atoms. Examples are like propionic acid, as it contains 3 carbons, and valeric acid, which contains 5 carbons. So here number of carbon is odd. Other than that, fatty acids are also classified as cis and trans fatty acids. We mainly classify them under unsaturated fatty acids. So depending on the orientation of hydrogen atoms at double bond, as you can see here, it is all depend upon the orientation of hydrogen atom at the double bond. There are two types of unsaturated fatty acid, that is cis fatty acid and trans fatty acid. Now, if the hydrogen bond is present at on the same side of the double bond, as you can see the top picture here, if the hydrogen bond is at the top side, at on the one side of the double bond, they are called as cis fatty acid. Examples are like oleic acid. And what is trans fatty acid? If the hydrogen atoms they are on opposite side of the double bond, they are called as trans fatty acids. Okay. So here these are on the same side, so they are called as cis fatty acid, and this here the hydrogen bond are on the opposite side of the double bond. So they are called as trans fatty acid. So example is ellagic acid. So with this note, I am going to end today's lecture. Thank you.